Small teams with the right people, they don't just compete with giants, they take them down. Facebook, Microsoft, Airbnb, they all started with 5 people or less before they expanded. At the time, they weren't industry giants. They were nobodies going up against Goliaths like MySpace, IBM, the Ritz-Carlton, and Four Seasons. These companies already had loyalty, experience, and market share. And yet, which ones do you recognize first now? You also have the ability to create massive, or small if you like, disruptions. But you can't do it alone, okay? These successful companies may have started with just 5 people or less, but they had the right people. If you're David and you're going into battle, you don't just pick up any 5 people, you choose warriors who you can take to the top. So, who are they? Who are the only 5 people you need in your company? Let's break it all down. Welcome to Alux, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. First up, the Analyst. Now, ideally, that's you. You have to be the first piece of the puzzle. Your job is to see the game before it's even played. It's up to you to spot patterns, build the engine, and get the ball rolling. The Analyst, as the name implies, can read and understand numbers. Nobody else can do this job but you, because you have access to all the data. And you need to build a runway long enough to take flight before you fall off the cliff. And this is where most founders fail. They love their product, but they don't know their business. They don't track how much it costs to gain one new customer. They don't know which numbers actually matter, and without that knowledge, they can't see the cracks that are forming until it's too late. WeWork, valued at $47 billion before 2019. It was gonna be the next big thing. They were going to lead the charge for the future of work. But then investors took a closer look at the numbers, and their valuation collapsed by 90%. Their model wasn't sustainable, their spending was reckless, and their leadership ignored every warning sign. That's what happens when a company lacks a real analyst. Anyone can be the next cautionary tale if they don't understand these 3 core things, inside and out: revenue and costs. How much money is coming in and how much is going out? Efficiency. What's working? What's broken? Where's the bottleneck? And scalability. If the business grows, can I handle it? If you've ever watched Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, then you know how investors react when founders can't answer simple questions about their business. They're out every time. They don't care about how passionate you are. Your passion isn't going to make them any money. But revenue, margins, and scalability will. The numbers never lie. And when you understand them, you can use them to predict the future. So, you could say the analyst is also the truth seeker, a fortune teller who anticipates problems before they happen. Their focus on tracking numbers allows them to find leverage points that can turn the business's weaknesses into strengths. Someone who knows how every decision impacts the bottom line. Now, you can't hire this role out, okay? Not yet. You have to be the one who understands your business better than anyone. When you do, your decisions get sharper, your moves get smarter, and you spot the opportunities in the risks. That's when your momentum starts to build, and that's when you're ready for the next critical hire. Number 2 is the operator. Now, this is your second hire, and their job is to do the jobs that keep you from doing your job. Sounds a bit confusing, okay? So let's explain. As your operation expands, hopefully your plate of things that you need to do will get bigger and bigger, to the point where the day-to-day operations keep you from doing your main job, which is looking at the numbers and figuring out how to make them bigger. The exact job of the operator changes depending on your business. Like, for example, if you've got a farm, the operator is the one taking care of the crops while you're out there talking with clients and suppliers. In a tech startup, the operator handles product development, managing engineers, and keeping the platform running while you focus on securing funding, partnerships, and scaling the user base. This person will eventually become the COO or Chief Operating Officer. They're the glue that holds everything together while you focus on growth. Their job is to maintain order and operation so that you can have the space to think, plan, and execute at a higher level. The relationship between the analyst, you, the founder, and the operator is one of the most important dynamics in any business. We've seen it time and time again in smaller companies. Steve Jobs had Tim Cook. Walt Disney had Roy Disney. In the early days of PayPal, while Peter Thiel was focused on the big picture strategy, Keith Rabios was the one who held down the fort and kept PayPal's day-to-day operations going. He also built systems that stopped the company from bleeding money due to scams and chargebacks. He worked with banks to keep the company compliant and functional. And he got the team to build self-service tools that allowed users to solve their own problems, which made the entire company more reliable. As your second hire, and your most important one, you're going to have to be really strategic with who you choose. You want them to have the skills that you need, sure, but they also need to embody the work culture and relationship that benefits you and your company. They need to push back on your ideas and ask the right questions so that both of you can understand where you're going. They need to manage people, systems, and services and products without always needing your advice and input. And you two need to be able to work well together. It helps if your communication styles are similar so that neither of you gets confused or offended easily. They're a jack of all trades, juggling many balls, and they do it calmly. Now, third up is the builder. This is the first time you bring in somebody who actually knows what they're doing. If the operator does a bit of everything to keep things running smoothly, the builder does one thing. They create your product. They're usually more knowledgeable than you, but they have no interest in starting their own thing. They just want to build and create without having to deal with the frustration of owning a business. And if your thing doesn't work out, well, they'll move on to another company, no hard feelings. Going back to the farm example, this is someone who's mastered soil fertility and can max out any given crop. At a coffee shop, this is the barista who can actually make an Instagram-worthy flower on steamed milk. At the very top level, this is someone like Johnny Ive, who translated Steve Jobs' ideas into actual physical products. At scale, this person might eventually become the chief product officer, the lead designer, or the head of engineering. But early on, their job is just to build the best possible version of whatever it is you're offering. They're the difference between an average product and something people can't stop talking about. The builder is the reason your product or service isn't just good enough. They should challenge your assumptions and push for excellence even when you're tempted to settle for good enough. They don't need to manage people or deal with operations, they just need the space, tools, and freedom to create. Which is why we often don't even hear about the builder. You use their creations, you might be aware of the company's CEO, but the builder? Who's that? That's exactly the person you're looking for. And if you find the right one, they won't just make your business better, they will make it iconic. Here's how you can spot them in just one conversation. They'll talk in details, not just concepts. They have an obsession with their craft, and they'll go where they have the most freedom to push it. And they've got no interest in running the business, they just want to build. Builders thrive in an environment where they can create, not manage. If they start talking about how they want to run the show, they're not the builder. They're a future operator or analyst. Number 4, the seller. Now, at the very beginning, you are the one talking to clients and customers. You know your product best, plus you're the only employee right now. This is a trap many new entrepreneurs fall into. They end up staying employees within their own company with nobody at the helm. This is when you bring in someone specialized in sales and marketing, because they're going to turn interest into actual dollars. A great seller isn't just someone who knows how to persuade. They understand human psychology, pricing strategies, and how to turn objections into opportunities. Now, Safra Katz is probably one of the greatest sellers of our time. She's responsible for transforming the company Oracle into an enterprise software giant. She drove 130 acquisitions, structured massive deals with companies that locked them into Oracle's ecosystem for years, and then she sold the company's vision to governments, corporations, and tech giants. But how did she manage that? How does a seller get people from all areas to jump on board? Well, first of all, they don't just sell a product, they sell certainty. They shape the entire environment of the deal before the final conversation even happens, and they can handle the pressure no matter who's in the boardroom. The seller is the reason your product thrives. They need to be skilled at persuasion, sure, but they also need to understand your brand, your customers, and how to sell without cheapening the value of what you're offering. They need to be comfortable with rejection, aggressive in pursuit of deals, and relentless in closing opportunities. And now, a business with an operator, a builder, and a seller is not just a startup, it's a machine. And that's when you're ready for number 5, the storyteller. Now, if you're just doing this for yourself, you don't need a storyteller. You can tell yourself whatever story you want. But if this becomes bigger than you, well, then things start to be a bit different, right? A storyteller is basically someone that makes a company cool, if we're being honest. It can be a single person, like in the case of Steve Jobs, or it can be an entire department. That's why when you think of Red Bull, you think of adventure and extreme sports, not weird college cocktails with questionable alcohol. If you own a fashion brand, they're the reason your clothes aren't just fabric, they represent a movement, a lifestyle, or an identity. If you've got a restaurant, they're the person who makes sure your story is about more than just the food. It's about nostalgia, innovation, culture, or whatever makes your place memorable. They aren't just putting out ads or writing slogans, they're shaping how the world sees your company. A great storyteller doesn't just talk about the product, they create an emotional connection between your audience and your brand. Nike doesn't just sell shoes, they sell the story of determination and victory. Lego doesn't just sell plastic bricks, they sell the story of creativity and imagination. As your 5th hire and the person responsible for how the world perceives your business, you need to be extremely deliberate about who you choose. They need to understand people, culture, and identity, not just marketing tactics. Bozoma St. John is a great example of this. She's responsible for shaping the identity of brands like Uber, Apple, Netflix, and PepsiCo. She made Apple Music about culture, not just streaming. She made them cool by focusing on the artists, moments, and the people shaping the music landscape. When Uber had its PR crisis and was struggling with negative press, she was brought in to rebuild the company's image. She turned the focus back to human connection, movement, and accessibility. A good storyteller knows where the cultural shift is heading, and they get their brand there ahead of time, before everyone else. So it's fresh and exciting. They capture the essence of what makes your company different, and they amplify it. What you're selling means something, not just to you, but to the people who buy it. The deeper and more precisely you can focus on that meaning, the more you'll connect with your audience. The right storyteller won't just make your company cool, they'll make it unforgettable. And as a bonus for sticking with us until the end, we gotta talk about the big hire for a second. Because there's a moment in every business where growth turns into chaos. What worked before stopped working, systems break, revenue stalls, decisions feel bigger, but progress feels slower. And that's when you need the big hire, the master of that one thing you need to fix. The big hire isn't a generalist. They're experts at one thing. It could be operations, finance, product development, or systems design. Whatever it is, they have a deep industry knowledge of it. Their expertise will directly impact your revenue, scale, or strategy. Because the big hire only focuses on the one thing that's holding back your success. You can't bring them in too early, it's not going to be effective. If you try to, they'll either be wasted or they'll disrupt things before the business is ready for it. It's the big hires that have helped the most recognizable brands get to where they are today. When luxury fashion house Burberry sales were tanking, they brought in Angela Ahrendts, a master of retail and brand expansion. They knew their brand needed to reach a wider audience, and Angela was the one to do it. She ran an aggressive digital marketing campaign to appeal to the younger generation, but she still made it feel luxurious and exclusive. When Apple's sales were strong, but their own stores were struggling to get people in the door, they turned to Angela too. She's responsible for making their stores feel like a futuristic cultural hub rather than just a shopping space. Sundar Pichai, on the other hand, is an expert of product development and scaling tech ecosystems. He led the development of Google Chrome, and then he went to Android where he streamlined its development, and now he's at Alphabet working on AI and cloud computing. Two very different types of workers, but both big hires. First, you have to find the major problem, then you can bring in a specialist to fix it. They're the people who are going to smash that glass ceiling for you. And Alexer, this is how David beat Goliath. He was an analyst. He assessed the situation, understood his own strengths, and spotted Goliath's weaknesses. He was also an operator. Once he had a plan, he had to execute it. No hesitation, no second guesses. David was also a builder. The stones he chose for his slingshot were smooth so they could fly better and faster. He understood his craft. As a seller, David had to convince people that he would win, even though the odds were not in his favor. And well, his story is one of the most famous underdog victories in history, okay? It's compelling, and we're still talking about it. When you have the right people by your side, there are no limits to what you can do, Alexer, so go on. Take down a giant. We'll see you back here next time.